Hello and welcome. In this video, I'm going to go over the Rubric tool in Google Classroom. We'll go through how to create a new rubric using the built-in tool in Classroom, as well as how to create one in Google Sheets and import that into Classroom and attach it to an assignment. We'll take a look at what the assignment will look like from the student's perspective, as well as how it looks when you're grading, and then what the final feedback for the students looks like. As always, there's timestamps for each section in the description below. So like I mentioned, there are two ways to create a new rubric in Google Classroom. One is directly in Classroom, and then the other is using Google Sheets and then importing it into Classroom. So first I'm going to take a look at how to create a rubric in Google Classroom. So I've created an assignment here, and I've put in all of the details that I want, and now I'm just going to click on this Add Rubric button down here. And there's three options. You can create a rubric, you could reuse a rubric that you have from a previous assignment, or you can import one from Sheets. So like I said, we're going to start by creating a new rubric. That brings us to this new table where we can add each of the criterion and the levels that we want. So the first thing that we have to do is come up with a criterion title, and then you can include a description, but it's not required. And then again, you need to give point values, and the title and description are optional. So maybe the first criteria is going to be on accuracy, and I want to make sure that the student is showing consistent and accurate mathematics. So now I come down to the levels. Right now we just have one level and it's 1 point. So maybe that's my beginning level. And then I want to add a new level, so I'm going to just push this plus button. And now I have to give it a point value. I can give it a value of 2 and just go up by step. Or if you want, some people like to do like the minimum maximum. So you could do like 1 point and then 5 points. And that's fine. You'll still be able to give the individual points in between when you grade the rubric. So this is just to show the students the different levels. The point values are actually entered by you as the teacher, right? And we'll just call this advanced. So now I've created this criteria. If I want to add another one, there's this button down here in the corner to add a new criterion. You can also come up here. If your criterion are all going to use the same levels, then it might be faster to use the duplicate criterion and then just change the criteria title and the criteria description. So once I've added my criteria and I'm done, all I have to do now is click Save. And that'll attach the rubric directly to the assignment. So here we can see that the rubric's been attached. There's 2 criteria, and it's a total maximum of 10 points. So now if I want to view that, I can click on this, and it shows me the criterion title, the criteria description, level title, level points, and then also here would be where the level descriptions would go if I had filled those in. So that's how you add a rubric directly in Classroom. If you have a rubric already created in Google Sheets or you want to create one in Google Sheets, I'll go through how to do that now so that you can see that step-by-step process. But real quick, I just want to mention, if you've attached a rubric and you realize that it's the wrong rubric, you can just click this X and delete the rubric from the assignment. So here's a template in Google Sheets of what the rubric needs to look like. And the way I created this was by exporting a rubric from Google Classroom into Google Sheets to see what exactly the format needed to look like. And then I just played around with it a little bit to put in the names instead of what the actual rubric content was. So these first 2 cells up here, just to point out, come directly from that export and are required in order for Google to read the rubric when it goes back in. Right? It says up here that it's not recommended to edit rubrics in spreadsheet format. And the reason for that is if you import a rubric from Google Sheets into Classroom, and then you go to Google Sheets and edit that sheet, it won't update the rubric that's in Classroom. You'd have to re-import. So it's just important to know that once you've imported it, you have to edit it in Google Classroom. Right? You need to include a criterion title. The description is optional, and then the points are required. Everything else is optional. You can have up to 10 levels, so that's why I've included these. If you don't need 10, you can delete them. If you need additional criterion, you can just copy and paste these rows so that you have more of those. Right? So this is the template. Let's take a look at one that's already filled in. So here's a rubric that I've created for the Year 3 MYP criteria D in math. And you can see that I've given each strand its own criteria, and then I've given each level its own column. Now, I've skipped the add numbers, you'll notice, because that's the way the rubric is set up in the MYP, is that levels 1 and 2 are together, 3 and 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that's fine. Like I mentioned, when you give the assignment, you can still give the point values that aren't associated with these. So I can still give a 3 or a 5 or a 7, right? Also down here, you'll notice that I've skipped some levels, and that's because those levels don't exist on my rubric. So I wanted to not include them, and that's fine. You don't have to include levels that you're not going to use. And so once you're done filling this in, then it's time to import it into Classroom. So once we're back in Classroom, we go ahead and click on the Add Rubric option again, and we're going to import from Sheets this time. This takes us directly to our Google Drive, where we can find the sheet and go ahead and click Add. Once the rubric has imported, it'll take you into the rubric editing tool that's built into Classroom. So you can see all of your criteria, make sure that the ones that you want are there. If for some reason you weren't going to be using one of these criteria for this particular assignment, you can come over here to these little menus and you can delete an entire criteria. You can also rearrange the order if you wanted to, or if you need to add another criteria, you could duplicate them. So there's my rubric. I've imported everything I want. And so now I just go ahead and click Save. And for some reason, it doesn't work. But it's having issues with the ordering. And I don't know if it's because I've skipped numbers or not, but it says rating list is not sorted in order. So all you have to do is change this order from ascending to descending. And that switches everything. You can switch it back to ascending if you'd prefer it in ascending. I don't know why, but you just need to switch that, and then when you click Save, it works. So now the rubric's attached. We can see it down here. Again, you can click on that to open it and preview it. You can see all of the different levels, the descriptions, the criteria names, and you can minimize it if you're trying to view it easier. And then you just see these little boxes to show the different point values. So that's my rubric. It's attached. Now I'm going to go ahead and give this assignment so that my students can submit their work, and then we'll take a look at what they see on their end. I've logged in as a student now, and I've gone to the Classwork tab, and here's the assignment with the attached rubric. I can click on this rubric here to open it, and you can see all of the levels, all of the criteria, everything filled in. Then when students are ready to submit their work, they simply view the assignment. In the View Assignment, you can also see that the rubric is here, and they can expand each of these for the details. Now they just add or create their work. And once their assignment is attached, they simply click Turn In. Now that students have submitted their work, it's time to take a look at the grading process. So I've gone back to Classroom in the Classwork tab, and here I have the assignment, and I can see that one student's turned it in. So I can click on that, and it takes me to the student work section. I then click on the student's attachment, which takes me here to the grading section of Google Classroom. So I can see the student's work here, and then on the right-hand side is the actual rubric. So I can just mouse over these little boxes to see what the different levels are. So this is the 0 points, this is the 8 points, and then I just choose which level I want to give the students by clicking on that. If I want to review the details, I can expand these so that I can see each of the level descriptions and select the correct level. As I mentioned, it is possible to give a score that you didn't give on the rubric. So like I said, I only did the even numbers. If I wanted to say that this was actually a 5 instead of a 6, I simply change that in the little score box. It shows me the overall score, which is just the total of all of the boxes that I've checked. And then because I said this assignment was out of 100 points, then it's converted this score of 35 to an 87.5 out of 100. I can change that total point value. So for example, if I wanted the total points to be out of 8, it would calculate the average out of 8. And if I don't want to give an average, if I want it to be a whole number, I could round this and say that the student has earned an 88 out of 100. So I can change those scores without changing what's on the rubric. So that gives me the flexibility to give the exact grade that I want. And once I'm done, I simply click the return button. Once again, I've logged in as a student, and now I can see that this assignment here on the Classwork tab has been graded. So if I click on the View Assignment, I can see the score that I've been given. So it was 35 out of 40 points, which was an 88. And then I can see each of the different rubric strands with which level I scored. And again, I can expand these so that I can see the details of the level that I reached and what I could have done better to get to the next level. If you add private comments, they appear here on the side for the students. And you can do that both in the grading section and directly in the classroom assignment. Thanks for watching. I hope that this video helped you understand how to use the Google Rubric tool. If you have questions, please feel free to contact me.